What's going on, everyone? Trust the buzz here. If you're new to the channel, I make Charlotte Hornets content, so if that interests you, make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. If you cannot tell by the thumbnail title of this video, the Charlotte Hornets beat the Atlanta Hawks in their first regular season game of the 2023-2024 season. Now, it was not a game without its ups and downs. There was times where I thought this team was going to throw it away. Felt like we struggled with putting our foot on the gas and keeping it there. However, they proved me wrong, at least in the end. They really started to put things together thanks to actually two huge threes by our rookie, Brandon Miller. We're going to, you know how I do when we talk about, post game. I go through every single player, also throw in a little bit about the other team as well. So, yeah, enjoy the ride. Get your snacks ready because what a game. What a game. It started off pretty good with the starters in there. I thought the defense was okay. The Hawks were just hitting some tough shots. I know DeJounte Murray was getting like some early middies. Trae Young, actually, I think Terry Rozier for the most part did a pretty good job of guarding Trae Young, even though Trae Young was getting some of the craziest whistles I've ever seen. But early on, it looked rough considering the defense was what it was. The defense, I think, was good. They were just getting some easy shots. Well, they weren't easy shots. They were just shots that were going in. But then I think, as far as our offense, Terry Rozier struggled a little bit. I think he started off like 1 for 4. LaMelo had in a horrendous shooting game, which we'll talk about. But PJ Washington early and often was just hitting his shots. He was this little mid-range floater he's got. It's working. It's doing wonders. And then Mark Williams as well, just dominating the paint in both ways. So it was a great game. I'm almost at a loss for words, but let's just go ahead and break it down player by player. Kind of quarter by quarter, we'll see. But yeah, for the first player I want to talk about, let's just go ahead and talk about LaMelo. Let's go ahead and get that out of the way. So on Twitter, I said that, and I thought it was really going to get canceled. I thought everybody was going to like comment, but you don't know what you're talking about. But at halftime, I was like, this is the worst I've ever seen LaMelo play. And by far it was. I've never seen LaMelo play that bad when it comes to shooting. And I probably could have worded that better by saying this is probably one of the worst shooting performances I've seen by him. His shooting was just all over the place. He did turn over the ball a few times early on, too. The whole team did. That was something that, starting off, we just had way too many turnovers. It was frustrating because it was like cross-the-court passes. It was ill-advised passes. As much as I just raved about PJ, he had a couple of them. Terry Rozier had a couple of them. I think Gordon Hayward had a few of them, too. But overall, we were just turning the ball over left and right. Brandon Miller was losing the ball at times. He got minutes early too, so that was good. That was good to kind of see. But LaMelo just did not look himself as far as like hitting his shot. Everything else was fine. His playmaking was fine. Rebounding was fine. The whole thing that goes with just being a point guard to me seemed fine. He was just taking very bad shots, and LaMelo is someone who he continued to take those bad shots, but he makes them, and normally that's the case. But in the first half, it didn't seem like he knew when to stop. But when we go into that second half, he knew, okay, like this isn't time for it. In the first half, it didn't seem like he had that. That was going through his mind. And that's one of the things I actually love about LaMelo is that he's going to forget. If he makes a mistake or he has a bad slump, it's not going to really affect him mentally. But at some point, you do have to think about it. And I think in the second half, he did that. And I think that allowed his game to come to him a lot more. I think he was trying to take it. But in this scenario, when you have guys like Terry, who was kind of heating up, like I said, PJ was doing his thing. Martin was kind of doing his thing on the block. I think that you're okay with kind of, hey, let me just let the game come to me. Because right now my guys are holding it down. I'm the one struggling. Let the game come to me. And I think he did that a lot in the second half, and it opened up everything. And his defense looks a lot better as well this year too. We still are leaving guys open on threes, ball watching, but I hope we fix it. But as far as LaMelo, I think he did a really good job bouncing back, and I think that shows what kind of player he is becoming. Because I don't feel like that's something he really done in the past. It's just, I don't think he was just very cognizant in the past of like, okay, I'm having a bad shooting night or things not going my way. I'm going to keep trying other stuff as opposed to, all right, let me actually just slow down, let the game come to me. I'll take my shots when I'm open, things like that. I think that shows maturity. I think that shows growth. That's something you're going to want from your franchise player in general and to your point guard. So as far as like his game itself, it was okay. But I think that there's something deeper there with saying that some of the new small things in the game that don't show up in the stat sheet, I see progression in LaMelo's game. Next, we're going to talk about Terry Rozier just because I want to talk about Terry Rozier. First, he started off 1 for 4, losing the ball. He was doing it way too much. He would try to split defenders. There was times, coming off the ball, he just didn't look right. He just couldn't get planted. He was always moving when he shot. But I mean, as time went on, he started to hit his shots when it started to matter most, when we were trying to come back down 11, when we were trying to come back down 8, because it kept fluctuating. We'll go down by 11, and then all of a sudden, we cut the lead to 6, and it goes back up to 11. Terry was the guy in those moments to make the play. Now, it wasn't always him making a shot. It was sometimes just him making the right play. And I think that's what we need from Terry. And then the way he was moving off ball, like I said, at some places it didn't seem like he was himself. Like I said, he was just taking a lot of like moving shots, which I guess that is more like Terry. But you could see where him off ball, it just opens up so much. There's a significant difference between the minutes where he's playing point guard, even though I think he was doing a really good job of like shaking Trae Young and getting to the basket. There was one time he like cooked Trae Young. Yeah, I think Terry does a good job of like getting to the basket, but as far as like being the lead guard, being a point guard, it's just not his thing. But his game really opens up when he's off ball, when he's coming off screens, when he's running down the sideline. And no one, they try to stop the ball, leave him in the corner. He hits those. So I think that, him being allowed to be played off ball more is going to help him tremendously. I said on Twitter, it gave me like 2021 Charlotte Hornets vibes, where Terry was like one of the best off ball players in the league. And I mean, it showed tonight. And then, some of his leadership as well. I think he did a really good job of guarding Trae Young. I know I saw that at the beginning of like right before the game, Steve Clifford said, hey, we're going to put Terry, kind of match Terry's minutes up with Trae Young, and I was like, it's a shame that we have to do this, and it still is a shame because Terry Rozier, that's not his game. I think he's a smart defender, as Steve Clifford said. I think he's a good defender, as Steve Clifford said, but that's just not his thing. That's just not his role, is being the defender. But I think he did a great job tonight. Trae Young was getting some crazy calls, but I think for the most part Terry did a good job. So shout out to Terry on that. Gordon Hayward didn't have a great game. I mean, well, I think he did have a great game, but it's more so it didn't like pop out. But if you look, he was 10, 8, and 7. What I like about his game is that it was not a flashy game. We need that guy that's kind of like the glue guy. In certain situations, you bring him in, and he's just going to play basketball. He's not going to make too many mistakes. He's going to try to make the right play. He looked smooth out there. I think he looked, it was good to have him healthy this offseason. I know that was something big. That was like, oh, you're healthy throughout the offseason, so you don't have to worry, not as much rehabilitation. And it showed. He just looked very comfortable out there, and I'm glad, especially considering he missed a few preseason games, and then the last preseason game he played in, I believe, we got destroyed by the Celtics. So it was good seeing him play. We're going to get a lot of that. We're going to get a lot of that from Gordon. That's what we're going to need. We're not going to need him to drop 20. Hopefully, we're not relying on Gordon Hayward to drop 20 and drop, 30. There will be times. I mean, I think he's still got all the talent there. But we don't need to rely on that kind of as we have in years past. I think this year it's just Gordon to go out there when the lane is open for you, like when the shots are there, take them. But we don't need you to do anything extraordinary. Just continue to move the ball, continue to be that guy to kind of hold the team together when LaMelo's getting double teamed at times, which he was in this game, or things like that. And I think Gordon Hayward did exactly that. And you can't replace it. My biggest thing about Gordon Hayward this whole time has been, one, the money. I think the money was too much, but two, his health. We have him on the court. It's last year of his deal, so the money don't kind of matter to me anymore. But I think he's holding it down. I think we really need that. So shout out to Gordon Hayward for doing what he did. PJ Washington, man, probably the player of the game, just because all his points were just so clutch. It may not have been like, of course, all his points didn't come in the fourth quarter by when I say clutch, but it was like, oh man, if we don't make a basket here, we're down 15. If we don't make a basket here, we're down 7. And PJ would go down there and make a basket, and a lot of it was from the 2. He really operated very, very well in the mid-range. That's something he's added to this game. I think early in the second quarter, maybe late second quarter in general, he had like this on the right hand elbow. He basically just, I don't know who was guarding him, but he had like he was driving and he just did like a step back. That's not something I typically see from PJ. So PJ was just aggressive. He was physical, and I really just appreciated his game. I think that he didn't force anything. There was times where he kind of forced up a shot. I know late he forced up a shot against Capella, but it went in. But that's just strength. You do the work. You're going to get rewarded. So I think PJ just did a good job of just finding his pocket and getting to the basket, and just not having to dunk it all the time or not having it. You know what I mean? He took what was there. Like there was one time where Trae Young was there trying to guard him. He literally put all his might into knocking Trae Young on the ground and dunking it and then staring Trae Young down. We need that. We need that kind of like aggressive nature on our team. We really don't have it. And lastly, as far as starters, I want to talk about my boy, which this jersey came in like 20 minutes right before tip off. It got in my mailbox. So, of course, I had to go get it, unwrap it right before the game. It's a Mark Williams jersey, if you couldn't tell. Mark Williams just was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. The only thing that kind of bothered me at times with Mark Williams, and it's, he's learning. It's for first full year as a starter, is that sometimes he was playing a little high on Capella, but I promise you, in the first half, I was like, oh, he's playing a little high on Capella. Capella can't shoot. And he was hedging like more on Capella's side. So I could understand like you're anticipating the screen and Trae Young going around it, but he was kind of up on Capella, not like playing the screen or not playing Trae Young. So I was like, that's a little too high. And Trae Young didn't have a good game tonight as far as shooting the ball. So therefore it didn't burn them. But by second half, that adjustment was made. I saw that, if Mark Williams was playing high, it was playing high, anticipating the screen, anticipating Trae Young coming off that screen. If he was playing low, it was, okay, I'm playing low. I'm not expecting Clint Capella to take a shot. And I think that's good. That's good. I mean, obviously, he probably didn't make that adjustment himself. I mean, of course, that's what the coaches are there for. But overall, I think it was just a great job. His rebounding was good. He's a defensive anchor. I know how many blocks he had. He had a snatch block on Trae Young. Amazing. That was his only block of the game. But then he had 3 steals. So he's getting active in the paint, tipping the ball. I can't say enough about Mark Williams. I think the way he's just able to kind of stand there, he knows like, hey, I'm just put my hands up and that's good enough. I'm going to, force him into a bad shot for the most part. I think that Mark Williams just did a fantastic job there. So, he ended with what? He ended with 13 and 15. So 13 points, 15 rebounds, 3 steals, 1 block. Let's see. Who else do I want to talk about? Brandon Miller. I was trying to save it, but everybody else can come after. Brandon Miller in the fourth quarter. So early on, he came in. I was like, oh, this is pretty early. He was the 6th man, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was the first person to come into the game. Brandon Miller came in early, hit a 3, his first career shot. He looked a little passive at the beginning. He was kind of letting things play out, and that's fine. Sometimes, you're going to want to see your second pick play like he's the second pick, which he did later in the game. But at first, he was a little passive. Also, don't want you to force it, so I completely understand. However, that's just me. I just would like my second pick to be a little more aggressive, but also don't mess up the flow of the game. And I think that's what he was more focused on, and it worked. So, I mean, who am I to complain? But everything else, I think he looked smooth. He was getting some good rebounds. He was playing some good defense. I know at one time he got burned by Bogey just because of the fact that I think he just turned his back, if I'm not mistaken. I think he just turned his back. Trae Young dotted Bogey, and Bogey was able to hit a 3. So that, ball watching, everybody does it on this team. But other than that, I think Brandon Miller was exceptional just by everything he was doing, all the little things, especially the 2 threes. So there was a 3, like he was like, he did like a step back in the corner, which was that I can't even put in words how clutch that 3 was. That step back, and he just looked so cool, calm, and collected. That's one thing that I've seen Brandon Miller do it at Alabama. I've seen him do it at Summer League. I've seen a little bit of it in the preseason, but he moves, and it sounds crazy. Let me land when I say this. He moves similar to Gordon Hayward, where it's just he knows kind of what his moves are. He knows what move he wants to go to. He's just very cool, calm, and collected. Even after he was hitting these huge 3s in the late fourth quarter, he was just very cool, calm, and collected about it. There was just nothing. There was nothing there. You know what I mean? He's just so, tuned into the game, so focused that Hey, I love it. I love that about him. I was just kind of, I wouldn't say worried, but it was something I was actually looking out for. Will he be able to take this into the regular season game? Will he get rattled? And he didn't. He didn't. At the beginning of the game, he played really well. Then he struggled with some foul trouble. Trae Young getting those foul calls and just other small little calls, nuanced calls that they were giving the Hawks, but that could have easily took him out the game. I mean, as far as just like him being like, I'm not, I'm getting these crap calls and the balls, I'm not hitting, because I think he missed like 2-3 that he made the first one. But then he comes into the fourth quarter in the clutchest moments of the game. One's a pull up from the top, and like I said, then he had a step back in the corner. So Brandon Miller, I love what I saw from him tonight. I think he's going to be an exceptional player. I will say that I did not agree with the decision to take him out in the late fourth. I get for the fact that you don't know if your rookie is ready for these kind of moments where it is like you're a bad trip to the free throw line away from the Hawks really being in this. It could take the game away from you. I completely understand that. He was hot, though. He was hot. But I will say the game slowed down significantly. Hornets trying to obviously run out of time. And then two, just all the fouling, to keep prolong the game. So I get it to an extent. But Brandon Miller was hot. I mean, those 2 threes were just back to back. So I get it as far as the basketball standpoint. But I would like to see him kind of play in those minutes sometimes. Because one, eventually you got to. Two, I think that he was hot. I don't feel like you should take the hot hand out, especially when Terry kind of really wasn't hitting like that. But he was clutch, especially that clutch floater over Capella. But he wasn't really hitting like that at the time. Brandon Miller was really your only guy who, and I know it was only 2 shots, but he was the only guy at that time that's hit consecutively. So I get it, but I don't get it at the same time. So that's what I'll say on that. J.D. Thor. Not really much. I did think he took a mid range and that was pretty good. And he had a 3 that was just wet, like from the